First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler, as always. Thanks for joining us. I really do appreciate that. We're live streaming on our website, on our app, and of course, on our social media channels on Facebook and YouTube. So plenty of places to catch this show. And we get to have, as always, great conversations here. Today, we're talking about, well, I mean, Halloween's tomorrow. It's the perfect time to actually bring this up and talk about horror movies. We all have our favorite ones, and for a lot of people, Halloween 4 is actually ranked right up there. And we're going to be discussing that and a new horror movie called Natty Knox and a memoir, because we have a director extraordinaire who's joining us right now, Mr. Dwight Little. Dwight, really excited to have you here with us today to talk about this. I mean, it's such perfect timing, but you know, horror movies are great year round. And you have been doing this for a long time, involved in that industry and more with Hollywood. So many things to talk about. First off, thanks for being here. Hello.
Hey, Greg. Thank you very much.
And I think to give everybody some context, could you just maybe walk through your career, like how you got into this and how horror movies, what was it that drew you to them to get involved in?
Well, wow. Okay, the 30-second walkthrough. Okay.
We can be longer than 30 seconds. We're in no rush, so feel free.
I'm a USC Film School brat, and got my start with some B-movie producers like the great Sam Markoff and Sandy Howard, who back in the day made, you know, low-budget B-movies. And I was picked by Mustafa Akkad to bring back Michael Myers in Halloween 4, which was a big responsibility. And it had been 10 years. You know, Season of the Witch, Halloween 3, was not quite the home run that they'd hoped it would be. And they wanted to bring Michael back, of course. So my writing partner and I, we figured out how to bring Michael back because he had blown up at the end of Halloween 2, along with Dr. Loomis. And so then we crafted a way, I think, to bring him back. And the movie's really, people love this movie, Halloween 4.
Yeah, they really do, and I want to make a note of this too, because my coworker Jack, who's back here behind me, wanted me to make sure that I told you that the opening sequence for Halloween 4 is probably the best one of the entire franchise. And,
well, thank you.
It's amazing. So
it gives people the goosebumps for some reason.
It does. Well, and tasked with bringing back, you know, Michael Myers, one of the most iconic horror movie villains of all time. I mean, up there with all the greats. That's a lot on your shoulders at that point.
Yeah.
And plus, you know, like you said, blown up. So going through that process of figuring out how to bring him back, I can't imagine. And just the pressure of, you know, what are people going to think? Obviously, it worked out fine. But before it went out, like, how were you feeling about that movie?
Well, you know, I tried to disconnect from Michael Myers. It sounds counterintuitive, but I was like, you know, I'm going to make a police procedural. That's what was in my mind. An escaped convict going into a town to wreak havoc, hunted down by a detective. In this case, it was Dr. Loomis. Then I thought, if I get the characters right, if I get the story right, then when Michael comes into it, you know, it'll be even more scary, because I was so intimidated that I thought, okay, fine, I won't even think about Michael Myers. I'll just make a really good story, and then add Michael Myers. And I think that really helped me think more clearly about the film.
Yeah, just disconnecting completely about it. I guess that does make sense. It does.
Yeah, avoid anxiety at all possible.
It worked out pretty well, and you know, and you've had this great career and all that. And I want to talk about the new movie coming up too here, but you have a memoir out talking about your experiences, you know, working in this industry and working through all of these different things. And I guess tell us about that for everybody out there. You know, what was it that made you want to write a memoir about your career?
Well, I was asked to go to UCLA and give a few little lectures in the evenings, you know, just guest lectures. And everybody had so many questions, and everybody was, you know, in 45 minutes, I just couldn't cover everything. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just write all this down. And I did, and I wrote it down. You know, everybody wants to make an independent movie now, or a short, or they want to go to film school. So there just seems to be so much interest. And I thought this book really could help maybe guide the way a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, like you mentioned, that people do. There's a lot of people that want to make independent films right now, but also just in that genre, and knowing how to do that, the experiences that you've gone through, and plus seeing such a wide range. I mean, going back to the 80s to now, what are some of the biggest differences that you've seen just in creating movies and specifically independent film?
Well, digital did change things because, we were shooting on film, mostly with one camera at the beginning. Now, of course, there's multiple cameras and everything's faster and you can see what you're shooting while you're shooting it. So the technology has shifted. But the storytelling and creating interesting characters, of course, that hasn't changed at all. But the distribution is always different. First, it was VHS, and then, of course, DVD, and then Blu-ray, and then we had Laserdisc for a minute that everybody was excited about, and then it was streaming, and now it's what they call it AVOD. There's just been so many changes in how movies are digested and seen, not to mention theatrical.
Well, for you being a creator, being a director, being a writer, through all of that, has that changed your approach to creating a movie, to making a movie, all of those things?
Not at all. It's funny. No, because the storytelling, honestly, it doesn't change. You could be shooting an IMAX or you could be shooting on an iPhone. And honestly, having a solid 3-act structure and a 2nd-act twist and having a good, reversal and denouement. I mean, all the structural elements of storytelling are the same, no matter what the technology. And getting actors to work with you to create characters, that's really not going to change.
Well, and talking about a pretty iconic actor, Robert Englund, who you've worked with on so many things and in this new movie, what's it like working with somebody like that when you're creating, these horror characters, these people that are supposed to terrify you? What's it like working with an actor and creating that from the?
Well, I think we hit it out of the park with Phantom of the Opera. I did Robert Englund's Phantom of the Opera, and he was terrifying and great. He's a fine actor, and he had a good career before he became Freddy. So he's a good character actor. Once he became Freddy, he kind of leaned into it. He could see that this was going to blow up, and it did. And then I've just worked with him just last year on Natty Knox, and now he's playing the town storyteller. And as always, he just brings a tremendous presence to it. Yeah, he's a friend. He's a great actor and a great guy.
What is it about horror movies that you think makes people so excited to see them and still draws people in as much as it does?
It's the release of anxiety. I've definitely, in my mind, I've pinned it down. I think the more the anxiety is heightened in our world, and I mean, we don't have to look very far to see how much anxiety, in the news and social media and that we're exposed to, that when you take that into the theater and focus it on one source of anxiety, whether it's Michael or Freddy or Jason or Pinhead or Chucky or whatever it is. And then when that evil is vanquished at the end, there's a release. So I think it's about coping with anxiety. That's my honest feeling.
Before we get into Natty Knox, for you, and I'm talking about ones that you haven't directed or been involved with, what are your favorite horror movies?
For me, it still goes back to the first Exorcist for me. And it just, for some reason, that movie got under my skin in a very serious way. I like George C. Scott's The Changeling, which is, I think, a terrific ghost story. I like reincarnation stories, like the reincarnation of Peter Proud. These movies are a bit older, I have to say. But in the new wave, I do like the Conjuring series very much. And I like the Sinister series of films a lot. Those with the Ethan Hawke. So I think those two Blumhouse franchises are really scary.
Yeah, it's sinister. There's some upsetting things in that. Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about Natty Knox. This film that you have, and give everybody kind of the rundown on what this is about.
So we had the opportunity kind of all of a sudden to make a movie because some money came together. And I sort of put the band back together and called Daniel Harris from Halloween 4. And I called Robert, Bill Moseley. So we put this dream team together, and we wanted to tell a neighborhood Halloween throwback 80s style movie. But the hook about it is that the main bad guy is the son of a B movie horror scream queen. And so he's been traumatized by the movies that there's a point of view, like he sees everything as a movie. And so there's a very interesting movie within a movie aspect to this about how the killer has been raised on his mother's horror movies, which when I read the script, I thought, oh, well, now that's interesting. I haven't seen that before. And, when you read something and you think, oh, that's a fresh angle on a killer, that was good. And look at these great actors.
Oh, yeah.
We found a wonderful, and it was a babysitter movie too, which is, even better. So we found this actress, Charlotte Fountain Hardim, and she's out of back east, hadn't had a lot of experience, and just was amazing in the movie. So honestly, we had a lot of fun going back and making an 80s throwback. It's got a little whiff of Stranger Things in it. It's got a little bit of Halloween 1, and but Bill Moseley is a real. His name is Abner Honeywell, but he's a memorable villain for sure.
That's got to be one of I would think the biggest things when you're doing that is creating that memorable villain, the villain that everybody can feel terrified of.
Yeah, and he's creepy, and he's got his own backstory, and he's people are loving his performance, loving it.
What are if there were some, are there main elements that you think every horror movie needs, regardless of the genre that it's in, whether it's a ghost story or a killer or something else?
Yeah, it all comes down to character. It comes down to the relatable character. I've always felt that the monster, in whatever form that takes, even the monster will take care of itself in a certain way. But you need that. The babysitter, the coach, the mother, the young girl, whoever that character is that you're going to bond with and relate to, and then be really worried about for the course of the movie and cheering that they survive. That's why they always talk about the final girl. You were always hoping that the final girl survives. We had a great final girl in Halloween 4, Ellie Cornell, and she ran over Michael Myers with a truck, and she was awesome. So I think it's really focusing on the characters and then letting the monster have his moment. But if you're with the characters, you're going to be scared for them.
Yeah, you're invested in it. You're seeing it from their perspective. And
that's the way in. I feel like that's the way into a horror movie.
Well, I noticed right behind you there, you've got your books still rolling, and
yes,
you mentioned that it's the Memoir.
That's product placement. Where is it? There
it is. That's great product placement. You know what you're doing. And this is, as you mentioned, you were doing the lectures and doing the guest speaking, and there's not enough time to cover everything in your career. So I want to just go back to that for a minute and talk about that for still rolling, and just what all does it cover throughout your career?
Well, what I'm trying to get at is that there's two different jobs. There's the film director, and that's one job, and that's where everything is about the director, all the decisions, the authority on set, the post-production music, everything is through the vision, the point of view of the director. And in television, it's really more of a collaborative enterprise, because the writer and the network, the showrunner, even the advertisers and sponsors have a lot to say. And I feel like you have to adjust based on which world you're in.
And changing it up for that. And that's what, for everybody watching too, I want to just say this. Some of the projects you've worked on: Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Bones, Arrow, 24. That's pretty impressive, and that's just a tiny amount here in the blurb that we have.
There's lots more.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's I'm saying. You've just been a part of so many really incredible things, and getting to put
Well, I'm really proud of my two '90s iconic action movies. One with Brandon Lee called Rapid Fire. Brandon Lee is now sort of a legend, like his dad, unfortunately. And Steven Seagal, who was the king of the '90s action movie, and I made one with him called Mark for Death, which was really, people loved that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's another area I've explored is action as well as horror.
Yeah, I mean, Steven Seagal, especially in the '90s. I mean, that was at the pinnacle, and you have one of those
Well,
pinnacle movies.
he blew up. He blew up. I mean, he was making #1 theatrical hit movies. I also made a very strange left-hand turn and did a family movie, the sequel to Free Willy 2, and a lot of people saw that movie. It was a good ecological save the whales kind of movie.
Yeah, that is a big shift, though. So how did that go about, going from directing Steven Seagal and doing Halloween 4 to where they're like, yeah, you should do Free Willy 2? That
it was a fluke. A lot of career in show business can be fluky, but the executive producer of that movie was a great, well-known, now past director named Richard Donner, from the Lethal Weapon movies and Maverick, and he was the Omen Superman. He was the #1 guy, and he saw Rapid Fire, and they were looking for a director for Free Willy 2, and it had a lot of complicated. It had everything you're not supposed to do. It had children, water, boats, and wildlife. And so it had everything you're not supposed to do, and he was worried getting someone who could handle it. And he saw Rapid Fire. He said, we should talk to this guy. But the reason he saw Rapid Fire, because he was looking at Brandon, because he wanted to put him in one of his Lethal Weapon movies. So,
wow.
So which he would have been great at, of course.
Right, but because of that, then you end up directing Free Willy 2.
It was a fluke, I got to tell you. And I was like, really? You want me to do this? Okay.
Yeah, why not? Is there a genre that you've never directed that you want to?
Oh, that's a good question. I did a couple love stories, but only in television. I think I would like to do a really great political thriller. I almost did it with Murder at 1600. It was a good murder mystery, but I'd love to do like a 3 Days of the Condor or something like that.
Nice. Well, I would imagine that is out there for you if you decide to set your mind to it, because you seem to.
You never know. You never know.
Covered a lot of things. Well, for Natty Knox, for everybody out there who wants to go watch Natty Knox right now, what's the best place and what's the best way for them to watch it?
Well, I'd rather they get it from Amazon or what are the other ones? iTunes. There's all those platforms you can get it for $2.99 or $4.99. However, if you want to be budget conscious, you can get it on Tubi for free. You'll get the ads, but you can see it on Tubi, and it's really, if you Google Natty Knox, it's available everywhere.
Then it 100%, I would guess that a lot of people are going to be watching this here over the next 24 hours and beyond that. I mean, it's everything that you just described with it sounds amazing. So Amazon Prime, rent it, buy it, iTunes.
Right. It's a good. You can get the DVD. You can just get the Blu-ray or the DVD. It's it's perfect time of year. It's a good Halloween movie for sure.
Great. Well, Dwight, I want to say thank you very much for taking some time to talk to us. This is really fun to get to hear your side of it, your experiences, and all these really cool things that you've been a part of.
Yeah.
Just to simplify it even down to that, these things are cool.
And, yeah, I know. I got some cool movies out there. It's hard to pick a favorite, but don't forget Phantom of the Opera for horror fans. That's a movie that needs to be rediscovered because Robert Englund is just so good in it.
There you go. So everybody's got something else to add to their list if they didn't have that already. So yeah. Family Opera too with Robert Englund. Well, Dwight, thank you again for joining us. Oh, one more thing for everyone. Your book. What's the best? Where do you prefer people to go to get that?
There's two places. One, either Amazon is great or Barnes & Noble, or I have a website, dwightlittledirector.com, and you can get it through that also.
Cool. Well, Dwight, such a pleasure having you on. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being here with Fox 12 Now, and have a great day.
You too, and thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And for all of you watching, again, this is part of what we get to do here with Fox 12 Now, with this live streaming show. We get to have conversations, you know. Kids say it's an interview. Really, it's conversation, getting to talk to really cool people sometimes like this, like Dwight Little, talking about what he does. And we've covered a lot here over this we've been live streaming now for almost an hour and a half, I believe, today, whatever time it is right now. And, you know, we've covered breaking news press conferences from the mayor of Portland. We talked about the Rip City remix, the Portland Trailblazers G League team, which is all of their games going to be airing on Fox 12 Plus. We talked about some news videos, so many things. And that's what we get to do here every day. So really, it's appreciate all of you who join us for whether you're here for the whole show or you watch the segments afterward. It's always nice to be here, and each day is different. We've got more stuff coming up tomorrow, of course. We'll be live at 1 p.m. And if there's breaking news between 1 and 4 p.m., I'll be right here. You can go to whatever platform you're watching right now. That's where you go, and I'll be here bringing you the latest up-to-date information on whatever that is. But we're signing off for right now, so we'll be back at least tomorrow, maybe sooner than that. I'll talk to you then. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.